Hello, I am Tilly Superdog and we're about to debate what's the best UK con. Disclaimer, this is mainly English cons because those are the ones I've gone to, although at the end, I'll put a timestamp here. These are for more Scottish, Welsh, and I don't think we have any Irish cons, so I'm sorry. So a little bit of information about me. I've been cosplaying for like maybe 5 years. I've gone to a lot of main cons, but not as many small cons, so I haven't heard of as many. I've done around 60 individual characters. Yes, I've done a spreadsheet. And I cosplay from a variety of things like anime, cartoons, Vocaloids, roleplays. And without further ado, let's get into it. First con, MegaCon. March 2022 was the first time that we got to see MegaCon live. The con was in Birmingham at the NEC, which is the same place that MCM Birmingham is. In my opinion, I thought it might have been my favourite con of the year. That was purely because of the rides, which was kind of because of Tokfest, which was actually the downfall of this con. Tokfest, as you may be able to hear from other people's opinions in a second, wasn't the best decision on MegaCon's part. Tokfest was based around TikTok, but not the cosplay element of TikTok, so it kind of drawed a different crowd and it clashed. However, MegaCon itself was on a different end of the NEC than MCM, and personally I thought it was better because it had access to the lake, which is great for photos. I thought that the con hall was actually quite small. However, it got better with its guest list, which it had Silco and Vanda from Arcane, which is a very new thing at the time. I can't actually remember any of the other guests. I think there was some Genshin guests, so for a new con it got some really good guests. However, then we get to the masquerade and the panels and stuff. Seeing firsthand, they kept cutting off people's masquerade audios, so people couldn't get the performance they wanted. Hopefully they can fix that next time. Overall, I think it was a good con. From my Google form that I sent out, and over 100 people replied to, around 70% went to MegaCon Birmingham 2022. Twilight Wolf Cosplayers says, great location with place to shoot plenty of amazing cosplayers, which I totally agree with. Eden Idol says, large open space, lots of stalls and outside areas, tons of social media posts to help with anything. It's very essential so the audience can get to know the con better. Really good special guests. Onyx and Muthu. I'm gonna butcher a lot of these names, so I'm sorry if I get any of them wrong. For it being the first con run by MegaCon, the layout was quite nice as it meant all vendors were kept on a separate floor to queuing. Personally, I enjoyed the fact of how close it was to get to the outside spaces. The hall that the organisers chose was very easy to get outside, still have easy access to get back into the con. Riff Fishy Boyo says, it's not too expensive, the staff members were quite nice and it doesn't get overbooked, which we will hear about a lot in this video. However, with every pro there is a con, some being SoxCos says, the TikTok con get to come into MegaCon without tickets, yet we weren't allowed there without tickets, when our tickets were more expensive. Melamimi Cosplay says, music was too loud when Masquerade was on, big screw up with the Masquerade on the Saturday of Birmingham, but was resolved by Sunday and Manchester. Security was awful, they let people in from TikTok Fest for free who made fun of cosplayers, stole, broke props, recorded, took pictures without permission. Accessibility was not the best, only way off stage in Masquerade was stairs at Birmingham, unless you go backstage again, which means it's separating and possibly embarrassing if people have to do something different. Accessibility into the con wasn't good either, as it involved going up and down the stairs with a big crowd and time pressure. TikTok Fest should not be in the same place or linked to the same event as MegaCon, as it caused too many problems and the attendants were not nice. Mao Kogas says, posted pictures of people without their permission. This is an issue I heard from more and just kind of saw on socials. I know a photographer that this happened to, Senko Photography. MegaCon posted a picture of a cosplayer that he took without his permission. Overall, around 65% of people would recommend you going to MegaCon, and the average score would be around 7 to 8. Next up is CosXpo. This is a con in Reading, which is actually in Reading University. From what I found out, it is not at all quite near the station. I didn't vlog this event, so you can't actually look back on this, but I did put on my Instagram story that I messed up with this. I kind of walked from the station to the con, which is around an hour. So don't make my mistake, get an Uber or something like that. Overall, about the atrocities that I made on my part, I thought it was a great experience, but not a great con. The vendors hall was one room, so you could finish it in 10 minutes. I didn't get to experience the panels, but it's like more of a workroom to know your skills. They do have a slight masquerade and I was gonna be in it, but I didn't show up on time for the first sign-in, but they still called my name out anyway as I heard from someone else, so a little bit of a mistake on that part. But finally, the thing that most people go to this con for is like the aesthetic. The place where this con is set is in a university, which you'd think, oh, there's not much to see there. But it has like a great park next to it, and you'll see from people's pictures there's loads of like cherry blossoms, so it's definitely a great place to get photos, but only if you know photographers. From the form, apparently it's only around 7% that went to CosXpo. Some pros from what people said are, Cosplay with Fear says, great to network, meet people, take photos. Non-Powerful Cosplay says, very interesting events going on if you're interested in specifically cosplay and trying out different things. Location also was great for photo ops. However, some cons are, Stupid Cosplay says, it's a convention about making cosplays so there's minimal vendors, also it's small so it's not massive and doesn't have a ton of people. Non-Powerful Cosplays also says, it was kinda hard to navigate or figure out where things were. Also some uni kids yelled at me. We love interacting with the public. Moonlit Streets Cosplay says, I wouldn't say elitist, but it's a high-end environment that can feel threatening. All rural, outdoor spaces not great for urban cosplay. However, I would kind of disagree because you can use the buildings, but that's about it. Around 60% of people recommend this con. The average score for this con, I'd say, is around a 7. Next up is Anime and Gaming Con. It's actually a series of cons I have not been to before, purely because of the drama I've heard about it. There's been a lot of allegations about the owners, also about the attendees, and I haven't had much interest in going, so I don't actually have a lot of opinion about this. However, some of you guys did. 75% of you guys actually said, no, you should not go to this con. However, some pros are, MimiQ.chu says, they're smaller cons and they have a lot of stage events like idol performers, and the cosplay showcase at the end of the day is really casual and good for beginners. Clocam32 says, pretty well managed, didn't have a big problem with it being overcrowded, it was a bit tight in places but better than others I've experienced. Miss Sophie Hatter says, they're more obscure places that don't get as many cons. Here's some of the cons of the cons. MimiQ.chu also says, Anime League is a horrible company and they're usually full of kids and people who it's their first con. Not a bad thing, but I had some bad experiences because of that. Pretty Little Cosplay says, a lot of past drama has happened with Anime League and it's bad, but most of the drama has been dealt with in my opinion. Anime League isn't a dangerous con, it just has a lot of bad things happen in the past. The current owners goes out of their way to keep everything better and safe for everyone. Tadpoles.cos says, creepy staff, lots of not safe for work artists being accepted. You see a lot of body pillows of minors, etc. And wouldn't you guess, around 66% of people said they would not recommend this con. And you guys would rate it a 1. Definitely a 1. Next up is MCM Comic-Con London. This is the biggest con in the UK and you can tell that by how crowded it is. All the time. MCM London is now known for overselling their tickets. Due to them overselling tickets, there is not a lot of space to walk in the halls or to take pictures outside. You have to travel out as much as possible if you need the space without people in the background of your pictures. However, that aside, it is probably one of my favourite cons. You are guaranteed to see your cosplay friends. If you can find them. With how many people, it's very hard to find your friends unless you're messaging them. You can guarantee that almost everyone you know is there unless something is happening in their life. And because it's the biggest con, it's most likely to have the best guests. From anime, to comics, to maybe Doctor Who. There's a lot of artist vendors to choose from, and experiences. It's definitely a great con, but I wouldn't say it's my favourite. There are some times where you feel lost because you don't know what to be doing anymore. Not everything will be for you at Comic-Con, because it's not just about comics anymore, it's about everything. 65% of you guys actually went to Comic-Con this year, which is surprisingly low, in my opinion, considering it is the most popular con in the UK. But some people might be scared of that. If you are scared, here are some pros though. Infinity Cosplay says, biggest UK event, lots of cosplayers, and there's an after party, which I completely forgot to mention. The after party, in my opinion, was actually really great for going for the first time. It was quite chill, had a nice community vibe to it, and lots of great music. However, I did hear about people getting spiked and touched, which not the greatest, so be careful, and remember it's over 18s only. Gyauxa says, Biggest convention by attendance, a prime opportunity to meet fellow cosplayers, artists and photographers. Usually have a great selection of voice actors to meet. The Artist Alley is large and has a decent range of different genres to see merch from. Homo Ghost says, lots of variety, lots of amazing companies and businesses that have very high quality stuff. Beelzebub Cosplay says, the atmosphere is great, I love wandering around and looking at all the amazing cosplayers. Artist Alley is a must. There are so many amazing and talented people that are selling their incredible work. I've made so many great cosplay friends from attending this con too, and the meets are a great way to connecting with people who are in the same fandoms and cosplay you are. There's also a small quiet room in con if you get too overwhelmed, although I do wish this room was bigger and easier to find. However, some of the cons were, Anna Shobiers says, it used to be £30 for a weekend ticket, now it's like 70 or something. The food stalls aren't as diverse unless you go to the corporate stand in the corridor. Unfortunately, MCM has problems selling more tickets than recommended, security are known to breaking props and avoiding issues with harassment. Paradise Chime says, often overbooked and too crowded. Lemon Shurbee says, really loud, especially for those with sensory issues and very crowded. The amount of people is definitely a big issue among all cosplayers. Around 55% of people said yes, they would recommend this con. On average, people would rate this con around a 7. Next con is Film and Comic Con. This is another series of cons I have not been to and don't know much about, but I do know it's more tailored to film and Comic Con. You have stuff from like Doctor Who and mainstream media, so not my thing. Only around 15% of people went to this con, and here are some of the pros. Toby Hurd says, this con is absolutely geared more towards the sci-fi and movie side of things rather than the anime things. They usually have a lot of guests on offer. It's typically well run and there are a lot of competitions and activities to take part in. All Books and Some Tea says, huge range of guests, smaller than MCM, felt incredibly friendly, good layout and space. Sylvia Cosplays says, cons are normally quite quiet and really good atmosphere, everything's spaced out well. The Queer Bumblebee says, pretty fun, great vendor area, good masquerade that's age inclusive. However, some of the cons are, Ozivi says, overselling tickets, no safe space for people with hidden disabilities and issues. Dr. Hirotog says, what I heard about the treatment of Joseph Quinn didn't make me happy. I'll try to put a post here about the incident, I don't remember off the top of my head, but basically a guest that went to the con didn't get treated well by the staff. Moon Cosplay says, awful time management and just general management. When it came to crowds and meeting celebrities, even the celebrities themselves were treated badly. Overall, people can't decide whether they would recommend this con because it's quite a split decision. Overall, you guys would rate this con around a 5. Next up is SunnyCon, which I think is underrated. SunnyCon is a con up in Newcastle, so a very northern con. SunnyCon is quite a small con that's actually based in a stadium from what I could see. This con is multi-level, so there's an elevator, an escalator, some stairs, so it's quite accessible. The vendors halls were great, you have like levels for different things. SunnyCon is actually an anime-based event, so you will see mainly anime stuff, but there are some other stuff as well. They only have a few stages and they are quite small, but they do have some good events. Overall, I would recommend SunnyCon, however, if I did tell you to go to it, it may get a bit too overcrowded because it is quite small. And as it's so small, only 8% of people went to this con. And here are some of the pros. Wholesome Melody says, run by the same people for over 10 years, so it's a reliable con. Other Media Cosplay says, venue is staggered across multiple floors, helps with overcrowding. 18 plus content has its own floor with security at the entry. Lots of good photography locations inside venue and nearby the city. Sammy the Moose says, big space, lots of panels and stores. The auction at the end was hilarious, someone bought stamps for £550 at the auction. However, there were only a few cons. Alex Cos says, it does get claustrophobic at times. Other Media Cosplay also says, it can get warm inside trader rooms. No worse than most con venues in summer though. From the people that went to this con, around 65% of people would recommend this con. The rating that you guys gave was quite staggered, so I'm gonna say it's around a 9. Next con is Hyper Japan, which technically this is the Japanese festival. As this is the Japanese festival, it's more tailored to Japanese stuff. Cosplay being a part of that, but that's not the main focus. Hyper Japan has actually changed its location multiple times from Olympia London, some type of dock which I'm not aware of, and Battersea Park. I've been to Hyper Japan twice, one in Olympia London, one in Battersea. Personally, I liked it in Battersea better as you get more of an outside space, but To travel to the outside space, you'd have to like go in a group if you want to get content. On the other hand, MCM London was more condensed, but it was a bit too condensed because there wasn't a lot of photo opportunities there. Hyper Japan has lots of Japanese food there, however it might be a bit overpriced. There's only one stage, so there's not a lot to entertain you. Personally, I think this might have been my least favourite con of the year, as there wasn't a lot of stuff to do. Only 11% of you guys actually went to this con. And some pros are, Sugar Rush Much says, less busy than bigger cons, great if you love Japanese culture. Ayato's Bubble Tea says, more of Japan than just anime, you also get to see the culture. You get vendors you wouldn't get at ordinary cons, so there's loads of things you won't ordinarily see. However, here are some cons that outweigh the pros actually. RainyMist.cos says, having to pay separate AM and PM tickets on the Saturday. This is actually crucial information because Saturday of Hyper Japan has one ticket for AM, which is till like maybe 12, and then it has a PM ticket, which is till the end of con, which is like maybe 5. This is really annoying as you kind of have to just go out the con to come back in. Please Bomb says, horribly organised, I see why they weren't charging much for the tickets. They oversold on Saturday and it had a hall that you could barely move through, meaning artists selling there most likely didn't make much and apparently sellers were passing out because it was so hot. There also wasn't much to do other than the parade. Lilac Rose Cosplay says, food can be expensive sometimes and very crowded but not too bad of an issue. A little bit of Alexa says, no Wi-Fi or data signal inside. Only 46% of you guys would recommend this con. On average, you guys would rate this con around a 5 or a 6. Next up is MCM Comic Con Birmingham. This is a con by the same people as MCM Comic Con London, but this one is in Birmingham, and I put these separately because they have quite different experiences. I have been to MCM Birmingham maybe only twice in my life. Personally, I thought it was quite good, definitely better than London to be fair. It is in the NEC, which is the same place as MegaCon, but on the other side of the building. This means it doesn't have any access to the lake unless you want to walk the whole way. It's also quite far away from the station. The station is actually connected to the NEC if you didn't know. However, they have changed their location slightly within the NEC. Before it was kind of in the corner, so it was quite crowded, there was only like one hall. However, they changed it to where there was a full-on exit and entrance, so it was a bit more spacious. The vendors hall is massive and you can get all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have as many fan meetups as MCM London. The guests, however, are quite lackluster. There aren't as many. There also isn't much to do, so you can kind of feel lost. Almost 50% of you guys went, so it's quite split. And some pros that you guys said. Leah Glue says, you meet amazing people and it's in the centre of the country, so it's pretty accessible to all. Odd-Shaped Octopus says, feels like a nicer con for connecting with friends and has a good location for photography away from crowds. Hey, it's ND says, had a nice variety of food options, polite attendees and very helpful staff. Monster Hall says, the NEC has a lot of space, especially this year in the new location. You also have a lake a bit away, which is great for photo shoots. However, some of the cons are, Gamburu Cosplay says, definitely needs better security 100%. I've seen other cons do better bag searches than the security at this con. HotaruCon says, security are rude and nasty, security and staff not as accommodating as they claim to be. Casually Ghosting says, it has a lack of stuff to do in comparison to London MCM. This is to be expected, but by day 2 you'll be out of things to explore unless there's a specific panel you happen to be interested in. Even with these cons, around 80% of people recommend this con, and on average you guys would rate it around an 8 or a 9. Next up is Insomnia. I know Insomnia is technically a gaming festival, but like Hyper Japan, it's not tailored for cosplay, but there is a cosplay element. Insomnia has its own cosplay zone with a bunch of cosplayers and sets which you can take photos with. Run by the people in the cosplay zone, there is also a masquerade and a championship. Overall, there is a lot to do at this con actually, if you like video games that is. I've only been there once, but there is a lot to do. There's VR, there's playing video games obviously. There's competitions like the Just Dance Showdown. Also there's like a zombie experience that I saw. Also the guests are quite good, you have voice actors like Zelda, but you also get YouTubers like Scott's Major. Overall I really like this con and it is also one of my favourites. As to be expected, as it isn't a cosplay con, only 9% of people went to this con. Some of the pros were, Magic Cosplay says, a lot of stuff to do, you will never be bored at that con. The cosplay area is great and the stores are pretty diverse for a gaming con. Also the main stage was really good. Cos Queenie says, I run the cosplay zone, so a little biased but love the teams that work there. Lots of gaming and 3 days of fun. However, some of the cons are, Moonlit Streets Cosplay says, pricey, quite influencer driven, very heavy gaming only presence, not much cosplay. Cos Apollo says, meet and greet lines cut short or ended early. However, overall, 56% of you guys would recommend this con. On average, you guys would rate this con around a 7. Now we're going to get into some cons that I've never been to and haven't heard as much about. Starting with SecretCon. SecretCon is called SecretCon because they don't release actually when or where it is until close to the time. They also have a ticket system. By ticket system, I mean there's like a limited amount of time and spaces. And that's from what I gather, because I haven't actually been before, but I do want to. From what I've seen, SecretCon is usually held in like the middle of nowhere, kinda. You have to be able to get a hotel, maybe be able to have a car. This con's main purpose is actually for photography. Kinda like CosXpo, there's a lot of places to take photos and not a lot of stuff inside the con to do. However, I don't know what I'm talking about, so let's hear some pros from you guys. Non-Powerful Cosplay says, it offers a lot of opportunities for cosplayers and photographers to work in locations they normally wouldn't. They also try to get in a variety of different cosplayers as to not leave togs shooting the same characters 50 times. They also have a place for shy or anxious individuals to wait and get collected by people who want to work with them, though the system isn't foolproof. With that, there are some cons. Cosplay with Fear says, just a place to take photos, nothing else. Non-Powerful Cosplay also says, there's some controversy regarding the customer service of SecretCon's staff members, as well as they can sometimes be unprofessional with their rules and regulations. Though with it being a newish con, there's a fairly room to improve. The entire thing does come off as fairly elitist both from inside and outside the con. With a lot of time, it can feel like you must bring your own photographer, or cosplayers who aren't as famous or aren't doing popular characters can often be left behind. And unlike other cons, there's nothing you can do besides shoot with people. And Nerds and Wigs says, the organisers should provide more information about the application process and how it works. Most importantly, why it is in place. Next up is UK Comic Con and Gaming Festival. This one I don't know like anything about, I just know there's a variety of them and they are around the country. Some pros that you guys said about it though. NexiCos says, lots of shop areas. Show Cosplay says, it's extremely local though despite it being a smaller convention it still held all the aspects of a large convention. There were loads of small businesses offering their products which was a good bonus. Lush Cos says, lovely management, cozy feel, small cosplay competitions, good for new con goers or those who want to meet other local cosplayers in the southwest. Timmy Cosplay says, extremely affordable and cheap, low stake competitions, never too overcrowded. Some cons however, Boyd11037 says, they are smaller than some of their really big cons and they can get packed at times depending on the day and place. Takeover says, the location was tricky to navigate to. Nesicos also says, all the shop areas get super cramped, 90% of people aren't in cosplay, and there's terrible security so harassment is very likely. Some people may enjoy the cons but I found they have got progressively worse over time. Next up is Wales Comic Con and Telford Takeover. This one I've heard less about but that's to be expected as it's in Wales and I've never gone to Wales. But you guys have said some pros, like SoxCos says, nice small con, amazing for making friends. Bunch of big people go, like David Tennant. Twilight Wolf Cosplay says, great selection of guests to meet, friendly atmosphere, lots of great vendors. Z's Cos says, more space, less people, lots of stalls to look at. However, some cons were, SoxCos has also said, tickets are very expensive for what they offer. Main halls are very cramped, constantly pushing past and rubbing along people. No parking available nearby, and train station is far away so it isn't that easy to get to. Queues inside to meet people can go across the 3 halls and round, which can be annoying to get around. Just very crowded once again with barely any quiet areas. Next up is Comic Con. This is a variety of cons that are more focused on cities that don't get as many cons. Some places where they held these events are Yorkshire, Liverpool, Scotland and Wales. Once again, I don't know anything about this con, but I do know people preferred this con over another con that was happening at the same time. And some good things that you guys have said about these cons are, Pebbles Cosplay says, easy transport links, good selection of guests and a lot of activities to do. Bud Fizz says, the entry times aren't really clear. MJ Plays YT says, it was more local for Scottish cosplayers. The location was next to the hotel and airport. Barnes Cosplay says, amazing guests who are not too expensive. Great locations. However, some negatives are, Bud Fizz says, the entry times aren't really clear. I had the 11 AM ticket so I left so I could queue early. But there was only one queue for 9 AM. At other cons I've been to, they have different lines for different entry times. Pebbles Cosplay also says, it can get very busy, some staff can be rude, and there is a lot of drop shippers. Barnes Cosplay also says, lacking in cosplays. MJ Plays YT says as well, the food queues were an hour plus long and got in the way of the doors. On the first day it was packed and got quite overwhelming. The second day was much quieter but still had the problems stated above. Next up is ACME Glasgow. All I know about this con is that it's in Scotland and it is quite popular. Some pros you guys have said to me. Harley Quinn 666 has said, lots of smaller local artists selling their work, so it was really good con for buying cute little things like designs, props and earrings. It was quite spacious as well, so there was plenty to see, but it didn't feel cramped or stressful. Everyone at con was so friendly. Leon.co.uk says, a big space was easy to walk around. Ganburu Cosplay says, honestly I could write songs and praises about the staff, how it's run. They actually listen to the people who were at the con, take allocations very seriously when there was a popular creator being called out. They instantly reacted and removed them from the guest list. I generally think within a few years they will come to England and host cons there. They're a convention company based in Scotland and run by 5 people. However, there were a couple of cons. Harley Quinn 666 says, I guess there could have been some more stores, as it has previously been a slightly bigger con here in Glasgow. Also, there were not a huge amount of places to get food and drink. Ganburu Cosplay also says, just better security. Next up is Unleashed events. These are a series of cons that I've heard about but wouldn't be able to tell you anything about them. However, you guys have said some good things like, Sylvia Cosplay says, staff super nice, everyone is super nice. Ghostly Cos says, lots to do, lots of amazing handmade stuff to buy. People were amazing, cosplay competition, great accessibility, lifts as well as stairs. Ollie Sadisi says, cheap entry and they're usually only on a Sunday, so it's easier to get time off for. Georgia Innit says, Unleashed runs many conventions monthly all around the north of the UK. I've been to 6 of these and they have been the most fun. The staff are wonderful, they have tons of events on, and overall it's just a great atmosphere. However, they have also said, Ollie Sadisi has also said, staff oversell far too much for the venue sizes and have little to no care for any problems cosplayers face in regards to harassment. Ghostly Cos has said, quite a few small corridors with stalls so it's quite crowded, not much food options. Sylvia Cosplay has also said, tickets are greatly oversold to the point they stopped letting people in at multiple cons. Next up is Kitacon, a con I have heard of, but also Tokonatsu, Minamicon, HotaruCon, which are 3 cons I have never heard of in my life. However, Kinreal has been to all of these and says, much more friendly environment, cons run late into the evenings. However, not many younger people know about them. Kirkle Cosplay also says about Kitacon, 18 plus but not unsafe or rowdy, very casual and fun, variety of events, on-campus accommodation. But also says, music is very K-pop and anime centered, not a lot of indoor spaces to relax during evenings if you need a break from parties. We're starting to get into some more unknown territory with Norcon. Cap TV says, relaxed atmosphere, people are friendly. Space Eloquence says, large cosplay community, always feels very safe there. However, Cap TV has said, too many people for a venue of its size, unclear signage. And Space Eloquence has also said, not too much anime content, more nerd/geek-con, e.g. Doctor Who, Star Wars. Next up is AniMangaPOP. Some pros are, Miss Sophie Hatter has said, really fun convention with a great sense of community, and lovely staff. Paradise Chime has said, smaller and less overwhelming with more smaller businesses. However, Miss Sophie Hatter has said, timetabling was messy, missed all panels I wanted to see because of the unclear timetabling. And Paradise Chime has also said, it's only for 1 day. Next up is Doki Doki Festival. Buki Lee has said, small and cheap in Manchester, so there's a lot of places for food to hang out with friends in cosplay. However, didn't have much going on in the actual con. We have one person that's gone to Otaku Link and MCon. Max Bunny Cos has said, they're both pretty small so it's easy to get around and set a place to meet if you get split up. The venues are pretty accessible. However, Otaku Link can be kind of difficult to find if you don't already know where it is, and there isn't much ground level seating at MCon. We have one person from Fort Bubble Festival. Please Bombs has said, really well staffed, many panels and workshops to do around the day and really great cosplay parade, where you can be entered into a random draw and win a prize. Plus, I always have huge con halls from there, as there's always super cool artists and merch, and you can meet really great people there and everyone is super nice. However, the food facilities are overpriced, as they tend to be at cons, and it sometimes can be hard to move around, but it's normally not that bad. It's also up north, so it can be difficult to reach if you're not in the area, but it's definitely worth the journey. And those are all the cons that I have on my list. If I missed a con, it's probably because I don't know of it and no one that replied to the form knows of it. However, feel free to drop a comment down below of the con you're thinking about. Overall, the best part about going to conventions is meeting friends. I can definitely agree with this statement. Meeting friends definitely makes any convention. I've been to some conventions by myself and it just doesn't feel the same. Another great part to going to conventions is being around like-minded people and people that appreciate who you're cosplaying. I also asked you guys in the form what would you like to say to the YouTube video, and here are some key information. The important one is to learn con etiquette. It's amazing that people want to take pictures with you and it's super validating, but if someone's sat down or eating, you shouldn't go up to them because they're trying to have a break. Of course some people are okay with this, but the majority aren't. Also, don't assume that you can have a picture. Most people will say yes, but some won't, and that's okay. If you're cosplaying, always bring safety pins. They will save a wardrobe malfunction. Or just bring like a small safety kit of like different things like tape or bobby pins, which goes into this next point of bring extra stuff, whether it be makeup, deodorant or food. And please, if you bring anything, make it a drink. Going to bigger cons over these past few years as more of a newbie to big convention scene has made me realise how many of you aren't drinking. Another important one, if someone is sat down without a wig, please don't go up to them. Same thing with eating, we are trying to have a rest. Some of us may be having like a headache because wigs get tight, but please, if someone is resting, maybe go up to them later. Another very important one is to stop con crunching and start your projects now. I've been a victim to con crunching a lot, especially the night before the con, so please, it will save you some sleep and it will look much better if you have it prepared. Another one that's been said is to go to smaller conventions as well as bigger conventions because they have different experiences, but also to make sure you do enough research of the con. This video is mainly to help cosplayers decide which cons, so I'm glad that it may have helped some of you. If you did enjoy this video, please give this video a like, maybe put a comment down below what cons you're going to this year or what house plans you have. If you enjoyed this content, maybe check out my other videos. I do vlogs and CMVs. If you like my setup, I do stream on Twitch. And I'll just pop up loads of my socials. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, on it all. Most importantly, subscribe and stay hydrated. Heyo, first time cosplaying Miko check. Miko, I said that so weirdly, oops. I'm just gonna do all the cringy things, you know. Miku dabbing, woo! It also had a good, like, it was, However, it brought, oh my god, what was I saying? I completely forgot what the sentence was. The layout was quite nice as it was, oh my god, I'm gonna hate reading. Around 60% of people recommend this cosplay, but it is, cosplay? Fuck. Creepy stuff, lots of not for safe. So you have an escalator, an escalator? No, what? Oh. However, there are cons that outweigh the bads. That doesn't fucking make sense. I'm losing my voice already, this is great. Most importantly, why it is in a place. Next up is ACME Glasgow. Glasgow? What the fuck? What the fuck is Glasgow? Next up, ew, next up, bro.